Hello, hello, everyone. This is your host, Mike Rashad Yearby, with another unfiltered conversation. And I'm here with Jim Marshall. Jim is about to tell us about his unique approach to Septemics. So, Jim, tell us about you, about your approach to basically multiple disciplines and your expertise in sharing and developing.
Well, the first thing I should say to give you context is that I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena,
Okay.
which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics.
Mhm.
I published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena.
Mm.
Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septilics means of or pertaining to seven. The tennis comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such steps,
Yep.
each of which is unique, and between them, they span the spectrum of human experience.
Okay.
By which I mean any problem, dilemma, situation, difficulty that any person has regarding people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually one.
So, quick question from our audience: what are scales? I know you said there are 35 of them, and it's come together to map, human behavior. But what, I guess, if you had to break it down for a layman, what are scales?
Well, a scale is basically a hierarchy or ladder or a sequence. And what's interesting about Septemic, the reason it's a subject is these are all 7 level scales.
Mm.
In fact, there's no theory of Septemics. This was all discovered empirically as a result of my work, which I'll be happy to tell you about. But to further answer your question, for example, there's a scale of basic purposes. Every human being has one of 7 basic purposes. Every person is on is at some level on every scale. The question is not is the person on the scale. The question is what level is he? And when you
Mm.
find that, it will be a big eye opener for you. Because every time you correctly spot someone on one of these levels, whether it's yourself or your wife or anybody else, you have an insight.
Okay.
And so let's say you're thinking about your mother. I wonder why my mother is on the scale of motivation. You know her, so to look at it, you're not going to have a hard time. But you're going to choose from a minimum of 7, right? So you read it, it's very specific. Oh, she's level 2. That explains why she does X, Y, and Z. And when I say
Mm.
it, she says D, E, F. And you might have a concatenation of realizations about her. And so your relationship with her just got much better because you really understand her now. That has one scale. You could do that with her full 35 scales. And if you did, you would understand her better than she understands herself.
Okay. So, how
This is
being
all
the
very smart.
found So
Go
how
ahead.
does it being the founder of this, like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm really fascinated, right? Like, and
Yeah.
how you're describing it and basically how it can actually help map, your relationships. Being the founder, how did you do this? How did you like discover this? Yeah.
The story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at the age of 16.
Mm.
Now, of course, I thought at the time that I was going to be engineering physical things, such as airfoils and as did all the other students. By the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche.
Mm.
Was that is the area of greatest mystery, greatest unknown, and more importantly, is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because we don't understand people. Don't
You're
understand
not
the wife,
wrong.
don't understand the commanding officer, don't understand the preacher, don't understand the son. This is a
Mhm.
huge problem for everybody. And this book solves it across 35 axes. You have 35 slices. you can find the person on any one of 35 scales, and every time you can say, "Oh, now I understand why he did."
Mhm.
So, to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, using engineering principles and tactics, engineering strategies, engineering devices, engineering philosophy, engineering approaches, et cetera, to help individual persons attain higher levels. Now, it
Mhm.
could be greater equanimity, greater responsibility, greater capability, greater confidence, depending on what the
Mhm.
person wanted. So all of my clients improved as a result of all. But incidentally, I started to notice that I could predict the outcome of the session.
Mm.
I never told that to anyone, but that told me there has to be something predictable in here. If I could predict, uh, by 1995, it became obvious to me that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and recorded. And as a result of our interaction, he'd go up to the next level on that scale. Now that happened many thousands of times.
Yeah.
I know I'm in maybe over a 40-year period. And every time it happened, it verified my hypothesis was the clients knew absolutely nothing about what I was doing, how I was doing it. They didn't know what I was seeing in biofeedback. They didn't know what thoughts led me to ask that question. All I knew is they came to me with a problem or an unwanted condition or something and said, "Would you help me with this?" I said, "Sure." And I did. So by 1995, I had actually observed and written down 32 scales that I had just seen. I had to realize after I would see through the session, I'd go out into the real world, like let's say to the bank. And I'd look at two guys and I would see exactly the same phenomenon. Some people that didn't even know me. What are you talking to? They were manifesting exactly that same pattern that I'd seen in the session. So after I would be out of the session, I would see this everywhere, which is verified. So in 1995, I was pondering a difficult case. I was trying to assess this case against one of these scales.
Mhm.
Meaning, where is this person on this scale? Because that's
Yeah.
what he uses. Because once you get that, it opens up a whole body of data about the person. Oh, that explains why he does this and this and this. He doesn't do that. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute. I knew the scale was correct. I mean, it's not using it today. And I went, wait a minute. There's a seventh level. This scale has a seventh level that I had never previously observed. That's why it wasn't in the scale. And there were very specific technical reasons for that I could explain to you. You want to know why. Well, anyway, as soon as I saw that, the first thing that happened was I understood the client perfectly, retroactive and going forward. Second
Mm.
thing was I knew exactly where to insert it into this list. That was not a question. It was obvious.
Mm.
So now this six-level skill set became a seven-level skill. And when it did, it manifested mathematics. Now, what I mean by that, I took 26 semesters of math and
Yeah.
loved every one of them. Among other things, I'm a mathematician.
Mhm.
So when math appears, I see it. Now, that's not unusual for people in science and engineering and mathematics. That's sort of
Mhm.
what I was working with people, see? So I could see when this scale went 7 levels, it went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, being a whole body of data. And this
Mm.
bundle of data have all these interlocking, intersecting, interacting mathematical data that jumped out at me that
Mm.
I hadn't even been looking for. I said, whoa, this is mathematical. Whatever the hell it is, it has to be natural law. Because
Yeah.
anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law. Like, for example, the Fibonacci sequence, or the
Okay.
pattern theory. It's inherently mathematical. So I said, well, I found something here. Now I asked myself, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have here might also be 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way. Because I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my client with anything new.
Hmm.
So now knowing what I was looking for, I inspected all of these other scales. In a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels, and when it did, it manifested mathematically.
Hmm.
So now I have 32 7-level scales, each of which had mathematics embedded in it that corresponded to some area of human nature.
Wow. May,
Let me
may, may I
draw.
ask may I
Sure.
ask you a quick question? Talking so in 95 you discovered this, right? 32 scales, now you're up to 35. In the last 30 years, have you discovered a subset of scales that kind of predicting because you said it's quantifiable through math. Like it's predicting the I would say the trajectory of human development as we're going now from what you've seen in 1995 where you probably saw a certain amount of scales where we operated on versus now in 2026.
The scales have not really changed. And the
Wow.
reason they haven't changed is they're natural law.
Mm,
Pythagoras' theorem is not going to change. Newton's 3 laws of motion aren't going to change. The periodic table of elements isn't going to change. I guarantee you, mark
mm,
my word, when we get to an advanced planet, they're going to have their version of the periodic table, their version of the 3 laws of motion, their version of the Pythagorean theorem, their version of the formula for the volume of a sphere, and that will enable us to communicate with them on the first day, because we
mm,
will have long things and we will translate brain stuff through those mathematical phenomena. So basically, when I discovered these things, the reason why I wrote them down, the reason why I eventually wrote the book was I could see that this was natural law. This was not subject to change. These skills have existed for at least thousands of years.
wow.
Now, if you can say, where did they come from? Well, where did the Pythagorean theorem come from? You can see that in a lot. Where did the theory of relativity come from?
Hmm.
We're not really know. But the whole point of science is to isolate these things so
Yes.
that people can use them. So I realized I had something big here, and I had to write a book because I realized I could go from helping people by the hundred, which is what I
Hmm.
had been doing as you would have helped an engineer, and helping people by the millions. I got this able to get it out. Because by that time in life, I was already thinking about, well, I'm not going to live forever. What's going to happen to all these people who come to me after I die? Well, now I know. We're going to have Septemics.
Yeah.
So in 95, the first draft of the book was finished. And I immediately sent it in a transcript form to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety
Wow.
of,
Okay. To make a case study out of it. Okay.
and they all responded very positively. I didn't power it in any way. I just said, take a look at this here. They had loved it. They had differing responses, distinctly positive responses. And that told me that this was exactly what I thought it was, which was a new subject that people would get. And
Wow.
because people would get it, it would help them. That was 30 years ago.
Mm,
Some version of this book has existed, it's been rewritten many times, for 30 years. I have been watching people get this for 30 years. I get it. You don't have to be a college graduate to understand this. You don't have to have 150 IQ to understand this. We went through a lot of trouble to make these comprehensive. And what I should do now, for the benefit of the and yourself, is tell you the names of the 36 scales so you know exactly what subject matter we're talking about in this book. Okay? Of the 35 scales, 24 of them are, I call individual scales, the 11 I call group scales. These are the individual scales. The scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of study, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the work scales, the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of power.
Mm.
Any one of these scales by itself could dramatically help the viewer or the reader.
Mm.
And let me give you a simple example of how that would work. I mentioned the scale of motivation. One of the most important things to know about a person is their motivation, right? So you're standing at a bus stop and some guy comes over and starts talking to you. You wonder, what does this guy want? Does he want a bus fare? You want to know about the bus schedule? Does he need a ride? You don't know. See? So you
Mhm.
immediately wonder. So the scale of motivation gives you the seven basic motivations of the being.
Yeah.
You can say, well, there are 1,000 motivations. Or is it just subsets of you? These are the seven basic ones. See, and they're all of it fit into. So you
Yeah.
could ask yourself, just using this one scale, what's my mother's motivation for me? What's my boss's motivation for me? What's my friend Joe's motivation for me? What's my son's motivation for me? Et cetera, et cetera. And each case, when you get it correctly, when you sparkle level, you'll have a realization. I see what my that
Mhm.
explains why she does this and this and this and this and this. Or she gets mad at me when I say it's getting you. See, now you understand that. But you have to do that for every person you have ever known or in your whole life.
Wow.
Then you could reverse the benefit and you could say, what is my motivation toward Alice? What is my motivation toward Fred? What is my motivation toward the commanding officer? Instead of each time you do it, when you get a correct answer, you'll have a motivation. That explains why I feel that way about that. See?
So
When,
so
go ahead.
can I ask you a question? It seems that, I mean, you said it can help you out with everything in your life. Is there any common mistakes or pitfalls that, people who are new to Septemics probably engage in that you see that they're using probably incorrectly?
Well, let me say this. First of all, I wanted to extremes to make this book comprehensive. There is a glossary, not only in front of each chapter, even in front of the introduction is a glossary.
Okay.
So let me tell you the precise definition of the word I'm using. So, for example, there's a scale of communication. If you look up a word communication in the dictionary, you'll see it has 30, 35 definitions. And it would be reasonable to say, well, what definition is by using the scale of communication? I give you it one line. It's
Yeah.
a one line definition. See, you got it. Okay, that's what it means.
Clean, concise.
So the way I explain this is if you can read English reasonably well,
Mhm.
and you want to improve yourself or others or both, this book is for you. And you might make the mistake of thinking, well, everybody wants to improve themselves. That's not true.
Yeah.
All kinds of categories of people, nearly half of the human race, who has no interest in any such thing. Psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, professional criminals, versus terrorists, torturers, murderers. I mean, it's a long list, right? Of crazy people, ignoramuses, morons. Lots of people, they're not thinking about it. They're
Mhm.
thinking about what's for lunch. But about half of the human race is interested in improving oneself or others. And if they can read English, this book is for them. So the only pitfall you have with this book is the pitfall of language.
Okay.
I made it very, very, I went out of my way. I literally, this is an 86,000 word book. I literally went through the book word by word, asking, is this going to communicate what I wanted to communicate? Is this the best word to use? And in many cases, I restrained myself to use words that were uh, simpler so people would get it.
Okay.
So that's why people have been coming to me for 30 years and saying, wow, This is cool. I get this. So let me tell you
Mm.
what happens with the context is, right? Goes into a bookstore and he sees this thing on shelf sometimes. He says, what the hell is this? Takes it down, opens it up. Doesn't matter what page he opens it up to. He opens it up to one of these tables. And he says, oh, this makes sense. You know why? It's natural law.
Okay.
I mean, the first time you learned the Pythagorean theorem, you were maybe 12 or 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first time you saw it, you looked at it a little bit, you said, oh,
Mhm.
okay, this makes sense. And you worked with it a little bit. Didn't take long for you to see how useful this was, how sensible it was, and then you never forgot it because you understood it. That's what
Mm.
this is about, because it's
Okay.
natural. No opinion. I went out of my way to not give it any opinion. And let me tell you what, I am
Wow.
an engineer. When I came the aptitude tests when I was, I guess, about 16, and they come out with a list of, these are like the 10 things you should do in life. Three of the top four are different types of engineering. Well, I already been accepted into the engineering school. So, well, duh, that's who I am. So this is human phenomena. So I've done all the heavy lifting in isolating these 7 levels and verifying them. You have to realize 35 scales, 7 levels in each one, there are 245 different levels, each of which have been ascertained, verified, and then expressed in a way that would make sense.
And see, I was gonna ask you about that. I was gonna ask you about the scales and why there's 7 levels, and how fast do people appear on those different levels of that scale?
Now, that's 2 different questions. First of all, there's a section in the book called Why 7.
Mhm.
And I explain why 7. It's a mathematical explanation. It's on my website. Go to the website which is Introduction to Septemics. Go to the section where it says why 7. And I tell you, there's about 3 pages. Why 7. Now, as far as people, spotting people on this, once you know the material, is very easy. It's like this. Let's say I tell you I'm into gardening. So you say, well, Jim, come over to my place and look at my garden. I say, great. So I go to Michael's garden and I walk into the garden and when I say it, he's got irises, petunias, roses, forget-me-nots, philodendron, you know, and I can isolate, name all of these flowers. And the reason I can do that is, I know, on a few words and 5-year-old kid in the yard,
Mhm.
he's going to see and smell exactly what I saw and smell. But all I can say is, he's a pretty and nice mama. He can analyze it. He doesn't know what the sample is. I mean, he certainly doesn't know about the traits. So so you have a guy, right? Friday comes, he says, I'm going to go all dressed up and go with my,
Mhm.
okay, right? Gets on his best suit and everything. And so he goes there and he meets this very pretty lady, right? Buys your drink. And they're talking now, right? They're having the usual, my name is Jen, what's yours, And he thinks to himself, after a few minutes, boy, she's pretty and she smells.
Mhm.
It's the same thing the little kid just said in the garden.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you.
He doesn't know anything about this girl. She
Mhm.
could be a narcissist. She could be a drug dealer. She could have bipolar disorder.
Mhm.
You know, her father might be in the mafia. He has no idea what he's getting himself into. And let me explain. In the United States, more than 50% of all marriages.
Mm.
And the reason for that is they don't know what they're looking at. If they did, they either wouldn't have married a person or they would have. Well, you see how applicable this is. Similarly, all over the world, it's easier to determine and observe. People routinely elect morons and criminals to run their governments. You know why? They don't
Yeah.
understand. If you don't understand the person, what are you his name ends in a vowel. I actually met somebody once who had a bachelor's degree on a high position. And we were having, a bad day and she's talking. And somehow, this is during the cooking news. I fit and I think he's cute. That is not a good bet because there's plenty of cute people who are bad people.
Okay.
So, so this really helps people.
Wow.
So,
I
I think
see.
after in 1995, when I sent out the first version of the book, and I got the
Okay.
feedback from my colleagues, I then spent the next 25 years of my life writing this, and I'll tell you why. First, I had to discover the phenomena, and I
Yeah.
pretty much had to explain how I did that, although I did
Yeah.
find a few more scales as I was doing the writing. Then I had to take this data and I had to use it to craft and work with a philosophic system. That is an engineering class.
Yeah.
In engineering, you are never allowed to say, "Oops, you can't have a plane fall out of the sky and say, oops, I didn't get that one right."
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen in here. Now, once in a while, you do have a catastrophe like that. And it's because it's not engineered correctly, but it's pretty rare. Somebody was drunk or on drugs or on whatever. But engineering is a rigorous, practical system. There's all kinds of factors of error that we put into everything to redundantly make sure everything works the way we want it to work.
Gotcha.
So I had to craft a system that would work every time for every person.
Mm.
That took 20 years. Then the most time consuming part of it was I had to express this in a way that would make sense to the average reader of English. Because right from the beginning, my intent was to help the people to work by giving them this. And I know I succeeded at that because for 30 years, people have been coming to me and saying, yeah, I read your book and I saw all the students. Yeah, explain both. Help them with this and help. They get it.
Hmm.
And the reason they get it is natural. Okay. So I could see that now, because of my heavy background in science, math, engineering, and I've had this career that I'm able to use to help people. So let me tell you with specificity how my career as a development engineer led this. Let's say you have a guy, uh, he can't go along with women. So he goes into therapy. And he sees some nice psychologist once a week for 55 minutes for a year.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, he says, I'm doing much better with this. Thank you very much. I'm going to go. I can do that in 30 minutes.
So you're saving a lot. You say, okay.
The fact that I save people a lot of money, that's neither here nor there. What's
Yeah.
significant is this was like tying less photography. And one time on photography, you see a bud, right? And you see it grow and open and then decay. I don't know, that's in 20 seconds.
See, that's
That's
pretty
what
cool.
was happening to me with my clients. I could see the whole phenomenon because it was so fast. The
Mm.
psychologist didn't see it because it was spread out over a year.
Mm.
So he couldn't see the patterns that I could see.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so, and then I would write it down.
So,
Kept writing
so
it down.
question, so question for you. So looking ahead, where do you see Septemics going in the next decade? I mean, you started in 95. You got case studies, sent it to colleagues, got them to review, got them to grow that data set, you know what I'm saying, even more. And now through 30 years of basically, fine tuning that data, where do you see this going in the next decade? Any future books, research, communities, building stuff like that?
Well, basically, there are now over 1,000 videos of me discussing my book, the whole,
Wow. Congratulations. Wow.
explaining this to people. This is what it is. This is how it works. And if you want to find out about it, which is
Hmm.
very clear, it's not complicated. You go
Yeah.
to the website, you can see what readers have said about it, what journalists have written about it, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. And there's even a pre-recorded audio introduction to that that you can listen to
Yeah.
that explains the big things.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm about now, is getting this out to people. Now, the populations regarding this book are two. Obviously, the largest population of people who have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
What's this? Right? That's the largest. The next population is people who love it. They love it. It's not that nobody is lukewarm on this thing. So what happens is when the guy first looks at it, I'm talking about the first minute. He says, yeah, this makes sense.
Mhm.
Then as he's going through the book, and at some point it hits him. He says, wow, this is it. That's what they tell me. He said, Jim, you covered everything. So people get this. Now, so there's a whole burgeoning world of September. And, there are very obvious problems with, for those of you who don't know, with any kind of a book. First of all, nowadays, most people don't read, other people don't read books. Most people read fiction books. This is nonfiction. Of the ones who read nonfiction, 80% of them are in a niche in
Mm.
mathematician, psychologists read psychology books, theologians read theology books, etc. People don't want to get out of their boxes. This is out of every person's box. This is an entirely new subject. This will blow your mind.
It's honestly, I believe so because when researching this, and just researching you, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like, I was like, man, like I like how you use science. I like how you use predictive algorithms. Like when you're talking about this, because it shows the data of human behavior, and it's pretty remarkable to be honest. So as we close, though, what is the most important insight you want readers and listeners, especially viewers of this podcast, to walk away from?
Well, first of all, let me say this. There are three ways in which this is generally useful to everybody. First is each of these 35 scales provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or the beneficialness of any group individual activity. If the group individual activity moves percent up the scale, it's beneficial or
Mhm.
positive. If it moves them down, it's actually negative. So I'm giving you a heuristic by which to manage human affairs, which is a whole new thing.
Mhm.
Secondly, once you find the correct method, meaning you spot it correctly, you necessarily have an insight. You say,
Yeah.
oh, now let me see what's going on with Joe. He's at this level. And this book explains it. He thinking, yeah, he's just like this. See? Now
Mhm.
you understand him better. So you're a little smarter. Then, once you know the correct level, you can improve the person to give yourself another by moving it up one level on the scale.
Gotcha.
I have solved the gradient problem that has bedeviled mankind for 6,000 years. Let me tell you what I mean by that. We all have problems and dilemmas and situations that we can't resolve. More than 99% of the time is because the person does not know the gradient in it. Every smart coach, therapist there in the world knows that human development must be done on gradient. You cannot make a couch potato into an old. There are too many intervening levels. So that's what I did for 4 years with my clients. I took the guy, see what level do that, and I moved him up to the next level. Voila, he's doing better, 100% of the time. But, this is really beneficial because when you know your level, you target yourself to the next level up. The other five levels you throw out completely. You don't even pay attention to them. They're not real. If you are at level 4 and you try to get to level 1 or 2, you will fail. But if you're at level 4 and you try to get to level 3, you'll succeed because it's the next level.
Wow.
I'm giving you the gradients.
Yeah.
This is the next thing. People don't know what the next thing is. You see, I get in a situation, he doesn't know what the next thing is. I am
Mm.
telling you what it is. And it's explained with precision and specificity. So that's what I would like people to know about this. It will help you.
Heck yeah. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for telling us about your book, being the founder of Septemics, and just with the scales, the different levels of understanding people, growing with people. That is simply amazing. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, promote that to the listeners and your future book purchasers for this before we
All
wrap
that. Just say in closing that the data in this book is vital for every,
Gotcha.
it can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable. You have a goal, it's low. You know, you talk to most guys, if they're honest with you, they'll say they don't understand women. You know, I don't
Uh-huh.
understand. Get at the ball. Analyze your girlfriend against the step. You don't understand her. Oh, I see what she wants. You don't know how to talk to her. You know her. You read the book. Her, you got
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on,
it.
and
Next time,
have a wonderful, wonderful day.
it was fun.